Hello, Allison Kent and Ed Worley and John Emmett and Gordon Smith and Paul Homchick and Steve Groover. Hey, nice to see you back, Steve. Bill Canfield, Christopher Gillingham, James Dickens, and many others as we get this one, 452 on the road.
3, 2, 1.
Busy show today, Julia.
Yes, indeed.
We're live from Studio B, as usual, here in San Francisco's beautiful Marina District. I'm your host, Tom Ehman. My co-host, Julia Wedekind, is here as well, looking at your comments on her iPad. This is show number 452 for Friday, the 10th of September. Just when I thought it was going to be a low-key show, a lot of news and nothing else, we have breaking America's Cup news. And I'm texting with a friend, senior serious friend in New Zealand, who's saying, well, the news from that press release from, I'll tell you where now, Valencia, is not necessarily everything that meets the eye. There may be more to it than just that press release. So we shall see. Thank you for joining us for show number, I've said it now 3 times, 452. Julia, your witness.
That must be auspicious. Yes, please and not please. I've been instructed to ask you to like, follow, and share.
When have you ever taken instructions from me or anybody else?
Oh,
never.
Well, occasionally I do.
You think?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Like, follow, and share. Comments welcome too, even in replay. And of course, we appreciate all the support we can get on Patreon, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. And that is how we keep this show on the proverbial road, isn't it, Julia?
Absolutely. But barely.
Barely? What kind of comment is that? I think we're doing pretty well.
We are.
Nice new double-breasted blazer. Do you care to tell the FOSI where you got that one?
No.
Okay. Can I tell them?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We went to the yacht club the other night, and Julie, it was because of COVID, they've got everything wide open. Everything is, they got the windows open, they got blowers, I don't know what all they've got, the HVAC. So Julia was cold, and they gave her one of the standard blazers for croutons that don't show up. I mean, she was perfectly well dressed. She showed up, and they gave her a double-breasted blazer. Looks pretty nice, Julia.
Yeah, and I didn't discover why until I got home, and it's a Brooks Brothers.
Okay.
I may have to haul off and really finally buy Brooks Brothers.
Well,
blazer.
and if enough people support us on Patreon, we can probably buy you a Brooks Brothers double-breasted blazer for the show. Maybe both of us matching blazers, just what we need. The starting line. It is Friday. Starting line. This is get everybody in the mood. Sail GP starts tomorrow. The practice day today, and this beautiful video from Gilles Martin Raget. Enjoy. And this is from today. It's breezy, obviously, in Marseille. There's Billy Basson's French team, the local favorites, of course. It would be nice to be in Saint-Tropez in September, wouldn't it?
Oh,
Julia?
it would.
And Gilles Martin-Raget, one of our favorite yachting photogs, snappers in the history of the world. I've done several teams with him, and he is just the best. He's quietly competent as we watch the French team go through their paces today in Saint-Tropez. There is the Kiwi team in black and the Brits in red. They will be live early tomorrow morning, our time, midday your time in Europe. Ben Ainsley back on the wheel. They're the Kiwis again. And the French. Again, this video courtesy of Gilles Martin-Raget of France. Never seen the American team. There is the British team again, with Ben Ainsley back on board after missing the last couple regattas.
They seem to be going quite briskly.
Yeah, a lot of breeze. These boats are course one design. This is, with all the ups and downs of the Cup, you wonder if this is going to become the premier series. Certainly, there's the American team. Yeah. Jimmy Spithill and co. They issued a video showing Paul Campbell James, who broke his leg and had to be surgically repaired. And that video on their Facebook page, I didn't show it today, so it's a little, well, it's not gruesome, but he's making a nice recovery. It'll be nice to see him back on the boat. He is up, the cast is off, he's walking around. And of course, Paul Campbell James broke his leg in a training accident. There are the Aussies, winners of the last two events, if memory serves. Tom Slingsby, who's just back from also winning the Moth Worlds. They're the Danes, the Rockwool-sponsored team.
Peter asked if you've done a deal with Ross so you can be playing the video.
Well, this is not a SailGP video, but yes, I'm assured that SailGP will not we won't get copyright strikes if we play their recap videos. We're not going to air their show, either of their live shows, nor do we need to or want to, but you can watch it live, and doing a watch party is probably not all that interesting at this stage. The American team again, Jimmy Spithill and co. Event here in San Francisco, the last event of this 2021-22 season, next spring, our time. I hope we don't get a copyright strike for this music. Andrew Pindar saying, evening from the balcony of Lake Le Mans in Geneva to those more Swiss than French. Speaking of neither, there is Nathan Otteridge sailing for the team Japan again. Was eighth at the Moth Worlds. Has been a regular competitor here. Julia?
Yeah, somebody just said that all the GP skippers were in the Moth.
Were all of them? I don't think Jimmy was. I think a lot of them were. Yeah, nice to have some wind for a change. Ted Ryman is saying, when will we see Jody, the foiling sailor, on one of those GP boats? Jack Singmeister is asking, is this a bloody watch party? No, we're just looking at an extended Gilles Martin-Raget video from today in practice day in Saint-Tropez.
I could do a practice day in Saint-Tropez.
We could do more than a practice day. We could move there and retire, I think. I could.
I spent 3 summers in Lazy Sombre, which is right across from there, and it was really wonderful.
Well, and it's sailing-wise, it's generally light. That's why they do the classic yacht regattas there, and it's generally light or else really windy.
Yeah.
Here come the French crossing on Port Tac ahead of the Brits. Gilles Martin Raget, again, is so talented. I think we've seen enough of this, but you get the idea. They had plenty of breeze, and thanks to Gilles for sending this video along, as did a couple others of you as well. I think Stingray sent this as well. Nice stuff for Sail GP, which is racing tomorrow and Sunday. They have 2 days. That's the way those events are working now. Thank you, Gilles, for that. This show 452. The fabulous FOSI, and we do have some breaking news, and it's a little confusing because I'm told I have a press release I'll play during the America's Cup segment. I'm not going to tease you and make you sit here and wonder, but I got a press release from what we understood, who I understood was the only Valencia bid, led by our old friend Nicolo Porzio, among others, and that press release said, we're out, we're pulling out, we're retiring, we're withdrawing our bid. And I haven't talked to Nicolo, and he's under an I talked to him briefly today, but he says, look, I'm under an NDA. I really can't talk. But after the bid, the final winner is announced next week on Friday or before. They said they'll announce it. That is RNZ, ETNZ. They'll announce it before the 17th, which is a week from today. And if they don't, if they announce it before that, which is what I'm hearing they will do, but we'll see. But then Nicolo said he would come on and talk about the whole process. He's not entirely amused. But I will also say that my also longtime friend, Russell Green, who is the rules advisor, legal advisor for ETNZ, texted after he saw me tease that we had breaking America's Cup venue news. He must have seen the press release out of Valencia, or at least that Valencia group as well. And he said, hey, Spain, he said, Tom, Spain is not dead. Don't assume, only Valencia.
Oh.
So maybe there's another Spanish bid, not just Valencia. And if so, that's also breaking news. And he calls them competing Spanish bids. And he said that he's received releases from both of them. I have not seen a release from other than the Valencia bid. And if any of you has, Stingray or otherwise, get your Google going, send it to me, and we will air it here during the show. But that's the breaking America's Cup venue news. Valencia apparently is out, unless there's a competing bid also wanting to host Julia in Valencia.
Yeah, Valencia is an obvious place because it's pretty well prepared.
Well, it is and it isn't. All the team bases there in the so-called Darsena.
Yeah.
Darsena Interior, the interior harbor, have all been taken over by other marine purposes and car dealerships. I'm not even sure what all, but so we'll see. Okay, let's carry on here. We got some Bravo Zulus to start the show, to some classy classes, I call them there, and that what I call the notice of race at the top of the show. And we, as we're counting down the 90 seconds, we give you a little intro. But the Finn class, one of the two classiest classes on the face of the planet, certainly among the two, they are having their European Masters Championships at Balaton, Lake Balaton in Hungary. They've got 78 entries. I don't know from how many countries, mostly Central and Eastern Europe, few Western European countries, but a fantastic event. Have a look at this video from today. Julia just said that's a little nicer music than the music we were listening to on Gilles Martin's tape.
I love his photos, though.
And his videos.
Yes.
Here's the Finns, the European Masters at Balaton. Yeah, there's some comments here. Interesting. Emmett saying it looks a little different from the Olympic guys because of the lack of ooching, rocking, and pumping. I don't think they allow that rule in the Masters, but somebody will know. And Steve Gruber says, you think? Almost looks like sailing and not windrowing. Canfield's on. Scarborough is very close to Spain. Yep, Scarborough. Yes. David James, you have to admire the guy who came in on the port-tack ley line and tacked into a gap, yes. But what a class. They get all these entries. And again, I don't know from how many nations. I wrote to Robert Deves overnight, but his email didn't go through for some reason. He's probably just sending out releases and videos and so on. They do a great job. And when the Finn class and the Star class send out press releases, I repeat, please send out the name of the person in the image, in the photograph, include the results, the latest results, tell us the time of the results, because you don't know if it's, especially here where it's now 9/3, it's 22/17 in Europe. And when I get a press release preparing the show in the morning, I don't know if it's from yesterday or today. And we like to use the most current stuff, including this photo, which is Akos Lukats. I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly, from Hungary, who is the new leader as of tonight at the top of the leaderboard. He's Hungarian, of course. Baz Deval is in second. And it's close at the top, at least among the top three, the Ukrainian Taras Havrish as well. But what a terrific class when you can get that many boats year after year, sometimes more, at their Masters. And remember, this is just the European Masters, not, the World Masters.
Right.
Cool stuff. So tight at the top, as we said, Bas de Waal, who's from the Netherlands. He's in second. Terrific event going on there at Hungary's Lake Balaton. Also a cool event going on as part of Kiel Week, which got postponed from the normal June. Kieler Volca up in, obviously in Kiel, is pretty light. They have this big high-pressure system, which has been sitting over Central Northern Europe, has started to go away. It's been light going at the Star Worlds. That was a photo we showed you on Tuesday of the boats. They didn't race the first 2 days, but they finally got in some light air racing today. Some wind, albeit still, this was yesterday, Thursday, albeit still light. Here's a nice video from them, the Star Worlds, and they've got 82 boats from yesterday.
I just love that.
Again, this was yesterday, Thursday, the third day of the regatta, the first day they got any racing in. Light-ish. This is up in Kiel, part of Kiel Week. And a nice video from the class. And these two classes are not in the Olympics anymore. Ed Worley is lamenting, as we would as well. Let's reach across from the top mark to the offset mark. Downhill in the light. Fantastic. Don Lunabo saying hi from up in wine country. There is the white burgee with a red cross of the Keeler Yacht Club. And those were the winners of race 1 yesterday. Spitzauer and Niehammer from Austria. And David James making the point, it's nice that the star class always includes crew names. And we try to do the same thing. Sometimes there's not room, sometimes there's not time. But David, it's a good point. Well taken and well made. Thank you for that. We try to do the same. And they were leading after yesterday, but today is a different story because Diego Negri and Frithof Clean won both of Thursday's races with perfect starts. This was Wednesday, now Thursday's races. They won both races yesterday, Thursday, and were leading last night on 6 points after 3 races because there have been some black flags. They've had some teams that were otherwise in the hunt get black flagged, and now they all have a throw out, so they'll throw that out. And here are those results. Diego and Frithof are leading. Look at their score line. They've not really had a throw out. They got a fourth, first, and a second. And Kusnerowicz and Prada, the Polish team, former world champions as well, they've got a 2, but they had to throw out their black flag, the 83-pointer there in race 2. And they got a 2-7, 2-1. That's a pretty nice score line. And Spitzauer and Johann Spitzauer and Hans Christian Niehammer were telling you about a minute ago, they also had to throw out a black flag. They're 1, black flag 4, 6, 8. And look at Tonci Stepanovic from Croatia, who is hopped in the star class and is doing just fine. John Emmett will like that a lot. And even our longtime friend, the yacht designer from Spain, Juan K., is in the top 10 last I looked after today's racing. So that's the Star Worlds going on in Kiel. Bravo Zulu to them. Julie, I dedicate this next picture to you.
Yes.
You know who that is? Besides Beefcake? Now look at, these are athletes. This is what athletes, in my mind, should look like.
Oh.
Huh?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
What? Too muscular?
Too much.
Oh, man. You know who that is?
No.
Former Finn Gold Cup, former Finn World Champion, Ed Wright, who won the Gold Cup in 2010.
I don't know Ed Wright.
And I know him not well, but I know him reasonably well. And a great sailor. He's hopped from the Finn into crewing. I guess he's crewing in the Star. He's a big, strong boy. But, we have cheesecake on here, Julia. And enough female cheesecake, I thought we should have a male, cheesecake.
Well, it's kind of you to think of us.
Well, we should. And that was on the front page of Sailing Anarchy today, too. As the editor of Sailing Anarchy, trying to generate a little bit of
cheesecake.
Diversity. You got to, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right?
That's what they say.
Well, one can only hope. Okay, John M., you have to be strong, heavy to crew a Star, much better than being fat. Yep. Everybody likes it. Marcos, TFE, well done. We're navigating the names from these regattas. You'll earn a Pulitzer. Do you say Pulitzer, Julia, or Pulitzer? Pulitzer, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We try to do the names. We try to keep some of them we've heard enough. There's Kim Bond down in Auckland, New Zealand. Great to see you show our video of the annual firing of the cannon, signaling the start of the RNZ sailing season in October for our members. That video is beginning of our 150th year. So, yes, we've made mention of that any number of times. And we like that. By the way, we've used video from Malta, from the Royal Malta Yacht Club.
Yeah.
Because they have that fantastic set of cannons up above when they signal the starts of the Rolex Middle Sea Race. Right. And any of you have something good, that particular yacht squadron from the Royal Yacht Squadron that we use at the top of the show on our 90-second countdown, people like it, we like it, and we'll continue to use it unless somebody else has one they'd like to use from their club. Us to use from your club. There's Baton Rouge in Charleston, on the East Coast. Charleston now has supplanted, is it true, has supplanted San Francisco as the #1 tourist destination in the country.
Is that so?
Ahead of San Francisco. And it's good. A beautiful town. It's historic.
Yes.
They have nice weather pretty much year-round, a little warmer than we are in the summer and a little perhaps chillier in the winter. Mm-hmm. And they don't have some of the problems we've got here in
Obviously.
San Francisco right now. We do have some problems, don't we?
We do, which not everybody's looking at.
Alicante. Everybody's saying, who's the other Spanish?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jacqueline Clark.
Yeah, Jacqueline Clark was. Okay. Let's get to Emmett. John sent in, the faithful and reliable guy that he is, he sent in yet another video vlog from his home Castle Cove Sailing Club in Weymouth. John, take it away.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the FOSI. I'm here in Castle Cove Sailing Club, and I'm just looking out on Portland Harbour, and we have another fantastic day here. Westerly wind, going to be a 3-race day for the RS 700 and RS 800 National Championships. So this is a class very strong in the UK that offers high performance sailing in a very saleable way, and I think that reflects the clubs we have around the UK, because the Olympics, that's very much the top end of our sport. So when we look at the 49er, the FX, the NACRA, these amazing high performance boats, but not that easy to sail. I know the top sailors make it look easy, but they're not that easy to sail. So for people who are only sailing, for example, once a week on a Sunday, that's quite difficult. And for the full-time sailors to get to that level of boat handling, they put a huge amount of effort. So the RS 700, which is a single-hander, and the RS 800, which is double-hander, offer that really high level of performance and all that excitement in a way that the majority of people can sail. So we've got a 4-day nationals here at Castle Cove Sailing Club. That's my home club, and today is day 2, and if you look in the background you'll see people just about to get on the water. So something to think about. Not everything is about the top end, and you can have a class appropriate whatever age you are. So for the people who aren't Olympic aspirants, I think this is a fantastic example. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Terrific report as usual. And Julie, you were saying, look at his branding on his mic. He's not only got a new mic, or he's replaced his mic. Maybe it's his old mic that he's now able to use with his new phone, whatever he's recording this on. It's a Sennheiser mic, good mic. And he's got now branding on his windscreen. Nice looking branding, John. Well done. He said too, John's on here, he commented, he said, you can't tell from this video of the boat park, presumably earlier in the day, but you wouldn't know it, but from the boat park, it was a 20 knot day. So thanks, John Emmett, for that. We appreciate it very much. Any comments, Julie, to take before we move on? Love John's vlogs, Gordon Smith is saying. Richard Goodrick is on. Christopher, hello, Christoph Rundle, there's a new name. Yeah. Mark Huss said, Gordon Smith, he shaved.
Well,
he shaved.
Not totally.
Well, he wasn't shaved?
He has a fashionable stubble.
Well, he does? Well, what do we call that here?
I don't know.
The little stubble, there's a word for that. It's a Clark shave, and somebody on here who's younger than I will know what that. We need Alfredo Partible. He knows what that's called. Okay, Julie Aarons is watching. We'll move on to the Cup now, and some Cup news for you. It's venue, but also they announced yesterday something more than the venue, and I'm not going to read their press release. Instead, we go for the analysis from our good friend and FOSI, Richard Gladwell. I don't have it live, but he issued today a really nice article, which I will quote from, headline for which is the America's Cup new AC40 provides an AC75. We got AC37, and we got an AC40, and we got an AC75. We're going to confuse the hell out of the general public, because we're talking about events, we're talking about a junior boat and a women's boat, and then the real boat, the AC75, but a pathway for women, youth, and new teams. We need to differentiate that somehow, in my not so humble opinion, but let's have a look at Richard's article. For the first, this was announced yesterday by ETNZ/RNZ, and Ineos was in on it too, along with the RYS, the Royal Yacht Squadron. For the first time in 170 years of the America's Cup history, women will be able to compete in an America's Cup women's regatta using the new AC41 design foiling monohull, which will have multiple uses in the 37th Cup. It was announced jointly by the defender and the challenger record for the 37th match, the AC40, which will provide a pathway for women and youth sailors into the Cup. For a start-up America's Cup team, the AC40 offers an excellent pathway and first big step into the big league. So it's not just for women and youth, it's also for prospective teams. When they have pre-regattas, prospective teams can buy one of these 40s for a 7-figure sum and get into the Cup as a kick the tires, toe in the water sort of an effort. Richard goes on to say Emirates Team New Zealand CEO Grant Dalton told Sail World that as well as being used for America's Cup preliminary regatta events, teams would now be able to run multiple boats as practice for AC-75 racing. Well, think about that. So you can have two AC-40s and run them as practice boats. And they won't be identical. They won't be just scaled down versions. They will be optimized versions from what I gather from various sources and press releases. The AC-40 can be taken out of class by the teams and used as a platform for their test programs. It will then have to be put back into class and remeasured before competing in official AC-40 events.
Okay.
So, I mean, that makes sense. You can do what you want when you own a boat. There will be some componentry, there's a word, componentry on the AC-40 which is removable. For example, if you want to test foils, you unbolt the one design wings and refit your test ones, or you can put a different rig in and take off the automatic pilot. By the way, these boats, we'll tell you in a minute, are going to be all electric.
Are they?
Yeah, powered. They're not going to have any grinders. So that's an interesting development, maybe looking forward to the future of the Cup as well.
I felt good for the grinders.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, the Grinders Union will probably not be too happy about that because it's taking them off the boat. Construction of the new design will start later this year, and the first boat is not expected to be sailing until October 2022. Now, that starts to tell you something, too, about the next date, because 2022 and then the AC-40s and their respective components will be built by multiple licensed builders using tooling developed during the construction of the first AC-40. It takes a while to design a boat like this. They don't just pop out structurally, quoting Grant Dalton. Only some preliminary AC-40 design work has been done to date. Richard Gladwell says Dalton is expecting to have around 7 of the AC-40s built initially. Once the first boat is near complete, he expects the rest of the AC-40 fleet to be built quickly. And one hears that is in 2022 and in 2023, which seems to indicate that the match is going to be in 2024. And we're starting to see that in any number of hints that that's the situation. Dalton says they will work hard to keep the price of the AC-40 affordable, even though it will be into, Richard Gladwell says, 7 figures. So it's $1 million plus boat. Well, for a 40-footer, what do you expect? Especially a high-tech 40-footer. The constructed AC-40s will be allocated in order of the entry into the America's Cup. Private owners will be allowed to order AC-40s presumably in due course. Design discussions for the AC-40 are still at a preliminary stage. Again, this is Richard Gladwell's article of today, which I thought was quite a bit more interesting than the press release, more informative. The AC-40, no surprise, the AC-40 will be sailed by a crew of 4, 2 on each side. They won't be moving side to side in America's Cup World Series Youth and Women's AC-40 events. So they're calling it the America's Cup World Series, are the lead-up events, not the acts or Los Actos, as they were called leading up to the 2007 Cup, like a Shakespearean drama.
Well, it is.
And I named it the World Series. I'll take credit for that if you like it, or if you don't. You can give me the credit or the blame. Back when we were starting leading up to the 2013 Cup. There's the key sentence, the boat, in that first paragraph, the boat will be all electric without any need for grinders. The electromechanical foil management system will be similar to that used on Te Kahu, the Hawk, which was ETNZ's training boat, as you'll recall from last time around. Upwind speeds will be over 30 knots and in the 40s downwind. The AC-40s will have a strong presence at the venue, the ultimate venue for the America's Cup, providing a spectacular class for the women's, youth, as well as the AC preliminary events. Now, you remember Te Kahu, that's what it looked like, and apparently it was not a very good boat in light air, and they're going to try to get this new AC-40 to perform better in light air. But you can see the 2-on-2. There are 2 people on each side of the boat, and that apparently is the plan for this AC-40. This was an AC-36 photo of ETNZ training in their boat Te Kahu, their training boat, the Hawk. Richard goes on to say the AC-40 will be sailed by a crew of 4, 2 on each side. Yeah, okay. I think I'm repeating that. Okay, we don't need to run that one again. So we should probably stop there, Julie, and see if there's any questions or comments before we go into this next. You can see the slide is the venue slide. What do we have?
Stingray says AC-40 is a cool announcement, but maybe to be deed length legit, they should have gone with AC-44.
Well, why? Because these aren't going to be raced in the Cup.
Well, for just in case they work out better than the AC-75s. and John Emmett says, I assume an AC-40 fits nicely inside a container.
Presumably. An RC-44 fits, as Hamish Ross is saying. An RC-44 fits, but that's by knocking off the bow. I think it's the bow they knock off. A lot of back and forth from smart people. Who else? What else? Stingray, the AC-40 is a very cool announcement, but okay, you just read that, Julia. Yeah, Neil Collingridge is saying you'll never forget your first AC-40 taking from the cadet class. I took that slide out of the show, but I swear to God, I'm going to put it back in. I think it was such a great promotion for that class, for that boat. Clark Chapin, quote, we're all done sailing for the day. The batteries are run down. Well, they'll have replaceable. Clark's who's an engineer. He's an automotive engineer and semi-retired. He may be fully retired now, but he's, he was a fuel, if I remember well, he was a fuel expert and knew fuel systems in cars and where to put them, the gas tanks, so when you got run into, you didn't catch the car on fire and all that sort of stuff, as well as being sure that the cars were super efficient with whatever fuel they were using.
I just wish people would begin thinking about what elements were involved in making electric engines and that are not friendly.
Yeah, indeed.
And they're never counted, but I think people should take that into account.
So you don't think those batteries are, you can't put those in landfills, eh? They've got to be disposed of somewhere.
I doubt it.
Yeah, I think smart people will figure that out. We'll see.
But I mean, I'm just talking about operating them.
It's not because your surrogate son, Mario Schumann, is a top-notch Mercedes mechanic, diesel and petrol.
He abets my prejudice.
He does. Pindar saying they could just buy a bunch of the new Persico Fly 40s and be off to the races in no time. Yeah, it's a little, it's not invented here syndrome, and they're all going to want to design, it's like Russell with the AC-45s. They want to design and build their own boats. They want to control it. They want to make money from it. They want to, an interesting... David James got it. An interesting, huge step backwards for women in sailing was when Mighty Mary took on Dave Dellenbaugh as helmsman at the last minute in 95. It clearly implied that women couldn't do it. It still makes me mad as hell, as I sail with between 40 and 60% female crew on my boat. Well, David James, that's interesting because I think also what one hears is that if this does go to Jeddah, we've been all talking here about whether this goes to Jeddah and what's that going to do with and for women.
Yep.
And one hears now that the requirement for women on the boat, which we'd all been hearing about, that they were going to require at least one woman on each of the boats, the AC-75s, that now is not going to happen. That's going to be relaxed. And
because they can't wear it.
Well, for whatever reason, because presumably it is going to Jeddah, and we'll see if that's true or not. But regardless, having women competing in AC-75s in Jeddah was probably going to be a problem, and that's maybe why they're relaxing it, and that's maybe why they're stuck a women's world championship or women's AC-40 America's Cup.
Which presumably will not be in Jeddah.
Which may not be in Jeddah. That's a very interesting point, Julia. We haven't talked about that because this was all kind of... What else here? Gosh, a lot of people on too. Welcome to all of you. Bravo Zulu TFE for the AC World Series. I went to the one in Chicago, and it wasn't my idea to have a World Series. We've been talking about having these preliminary events, and indeed, when Hamish Ross, who's on here, was the rules advisor to Alenghi, and I was the rules advisor to Oracle, and we cooked up the so-called Actos, the acts. That was one of the things when we became the Challenger of Record that they said, we want to do these preliminary regattas. We had 13 of them. leading up to '07, the '07 Cup in Valencia. In fact, we're going to talk about one of them. We're going to talk about Acto 1, numero uno, which took place in Marseille on the 11th down under. So it took place on the 11th, or at least it ended on the 11th, and they added quite a problem at the end of that regatta for 3 of the teams. Emmett saying back on that his report, quite a few mixed teams at the RS 800s. It is a big part of the sport at club level. It's so nice to see club level racing going on. João Alexander's on down in, I can never remember if João's in Portugal or Brazil. I think he's in Brazil. Same price as Amelgas 40. Yeah, Dave was tactician. Leslie Egnott remained as helmsperson, talking about Mighty Mary. Yes, that's right, Steve Gruber. It was Leslie Egnott, whose son, Nick Egnott Johnson, Nick E.J. as the kids call him, is a terrific match racer and a great kid. So, as Ed Worley is saying, the cost of the Americas, competing in the America's Cup, keeps going up. Yes, because each of the teams now is going to have to buy one of these boats. But arguably, if you're building your own training boat anyway, like New York did, remember they had, what would they call, what was the nickname of that boat? New York's training boat. It was after the car, that was a, Clark Chapin, or any number of people remind me, because it was their, it's what the car companies call their test cars before they.
It wasn't a whale.
No, it was something else. How long is an AC40? Well, Jody, presumably it's 40 LOA, but I don't know if that's linked overall or on the waterline. But, it may save 40 feet. It's clearly 40 feet, not 40 meters. It may save some real money. Bill Shore is watching. Hello, Bill. The AC75s are actually on 68 68-foot water lines, yes. So the water line may be shorter than 40, because I assume 40 LOA, and whether that includes the bowsprit or not, probably not. I wonder if this move to the AC40s for the run-up also brings in more money for ETNZ. Well, it no doubt does, because they're building the boats and supplying them, but it also is a huge harangue cost and distraction, so it probably cuts a little both ways. The Mule, thank you, Ben Osborne. Did you see that, Julia?
Yep.
The Mule, yep. Thank you, everybody.
And Rick Pfaff is watching.
Commodore Pfaff is on.
Yeah.
In Watch Hill, Rhode Island.
Yes.
Where they also got run over by a hurricane. I'm glad to see you back on, Ricky. You must have electricity and internet. Well, they must have had electricity and internet for a while. I had the pleasure to come commentate with Leslie Johnson, Egnott Johnson, lovely lady. Yes, she is. And obviously a terrific sailor. Todd Reynolds in Chicago has joined us. Hi, Todd. Okay, shall we go to the venue? The venue discussion. We told you at the top of the show that at least the Valencia group, as far as I know it, the only Valencia group is out. So this slide, and I got the press release literally as I was going into hair and makeup, which means taking a shower and combing my hair. But Cork is still in, and we'll tell you some more about Cork in a minute. Valencia has apparently pulled out with this press release that I literally received minutes before we went live. Valencia withdraws its bid to host the 37th America's Cup is the headline. Dated today, the opportunity to celebrate in Valencia, the oldest sporting trophy in the world, had solid economic support from institutions and business organizations of Valencia and Spain. A particular mention for all the major corporations committed to supporting the Cup in Valencia financially, so they're tipping their hat, apparently. I still think money was a bigger problem than they're saying here in this release, but who knows? Although Valencia had the infrastructure and experienced team, and an experienced team, organizing team, after months of constructive collaborations with the 37th America's Cup rights holders, the parties could not align their mutual interests.
Mm-hmm.
What's that sound like? That sounds like United Nations or State Department or Foreign Ministry wording. They could not align their mutual interests. The promoters of the Valencian bid, Nicolo Porcio de Camporatondo, founder of H2O Rider Science and Management, Alejandro Fliquete, and Carlos de Beltran, president and manager of the Real Club Náutico Valencia, respectively. Good guys. I don't know Alejandro well, but I, of course, know Nicolo for years, and also Senor Beltran. And Antonio Alcazar, partner of Redstone Advisory Partners, have worked during the past months to position the America's Cup as a sustainable economic model and accelerator for the city's return among the main tourist destinations in the world. return to, I think is what they meant, trying to get it back in line after all the problems with COVID and so on. All of this with a firm intention of allowing Valencia to reactivate the local, regional, and national economy through the boost to the maritime industry, tourism, technology, and innovation that the event represents. This time, Valencia was planning to use the existing maritime infrastructure and implement a long-term legacy program, looking forward to 2040, to reactivate these infrastructures and develop the unused areas to support the technological and innovation hub that is currently being developed in the marina.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of, to be fair, it sounds like a lot of kind of, again, foreign ministry or State Department.
Well,
Buff and fluff and buff.
I always look to the money.
Yes, when in doubt, follow the money. And I think the idea that they had to put up $15 million, which is what one continues to hear, they have to put up 15 to be considered a viable candidate. And it's refundable. It's earnest money. You got to put cash on the barrelhead, and maybe Russell Green will tell me if that's not correct. Russell's promised to come on the show, by the way, and we hope he will. The press release went on, but you've got the main points. They tried to do it, couldn't align their, what was the wording they used? I'll back up. Could not align their mutual, where is it there? There it is. Could not align their mutual interests. Julia.
Okay.
By the way, I forgot to tell you, I got an email and I don't know if he wants me to mention it or not, from a FOSI who said, hey, we're trying to find a new president of a class, of a serious Olympic class. And here's the job spec. Would you have Julia look at it? And have her tell us, since she's a headhunter, tell us which. I'm serious, and I haven't forwarded it to you, but I will. I just saw it again in my mail this morning. Okay, so now let's go on to Cork, Ireland, which are still in the hunt. These are some senior serious ministers of the government and local officials who were out on a rib during the Cork that was delayed from last year, when it was the Royal Cork Yacht Club's 300th, and this year is their 301st. But the growing international consensus, according to, this is from afloat.ie, the big sailing website in Ireland, the growing international consensus that the 37th America's Cup could be sailed in Cork Harbor in 2024 will be boosted by a buoyant Irish government cost-benefit analysis, prediction into the possibilities of an Irish staging of the world's third biggest sporting event. Of course, again, this is from a sailing publication, afloat.ie, who would be cheerleading this, no doubt, and as they should. According to an Afloat source, the unpublished report is currently, quote, stuck in the Department of Sport, unquote, but reveals it could be worth, do I do a drum roll here?
Yeah.
Huh?
Sure.
Do I do, some music?
Sound
Effects? Could be worth 500 million euros to Ireland.
It could.
The figures contained in the report back the Irish bid conclusively, the source says, and are, quote, 150 million euros of cost to return, 500 million euros of hard benefits to Ireland. So see, I can put a wild applause.
Oh, I forgot you had that. Yeah.
And everybody would hope I don't use too much of that, I'm sure. But we've got some other sound effects too.
I know.
But afloat.ie via Stingray, who's got great search engines, and sent me that link this morning as well. Thank you, Stingray. But Jeddah still seems to be what everyone's talking about. I still can't imagine it. I hope it doesn't go there. If it does, I think it will be a major disaster for the Cup and for the sport, for a whole lot of reasons we don't need to go into here. But follow the money, as Julia says. Right, Julia?
Unfortunately.
And they've got apparently on offer 100 million cash and another upwards to 100 million in kind. Apropos this Grand Prix, what is supposed to be the fastest track, brand new track, built on the shore there in Jeddah for their first Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, scheduled to take place the 5th of December. And as we pointed out in Tuesday's show, they're just, I think, are insurmountable, just a heap of problems with this venue, political and otherwise. Follow the money, but apparently there's $100 million or more, maybe a lot more on offer. I don't know. What do you all think? We put this to the FOSI on Tuesday, and we've been talking, and I've heard from multiple sources in the last 3 days that, again, this is where it's going, and that people who are inside the bidding process saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Julia.
David James says, I understand that Jeddah might be lucrative. However, unlike in normal private enterprise, lucrative is not the same as proper yachting. And Stingray says, I bet they paid
Ernst and Young.
Ernst and Young a lot of money for that.
For that, that was for the Irish cost benefit, the economic analyst, the economic impact study. Bill Parker, having had some experience in local development corporations, cut those numbers in half and maybe in half again. I think the numbers Bermuda ended up with should be a guide. Yeah, I think that's probably fair and true. Marcus Feinstein, hello, welcome to you. Linton Little, there's a new name. Welcome. John Emmett, I worry that Jeddah would be a real step backwards for women in sailing. Well, maybe the women's, as Julia pointed out, John, the women's America's Cup in the 40s will be held someplace else. And one hears, and I've heard this from not a number of sources now, that the requirement that we'd all been talking about, hearing about, that they were going to require a woman on each of the AC boats for AC 37 is no longer in the mix, which again would further give credence to the idea that this is going to Jeddah, where I just don't think that would be a rule that would be, shall we say, digested very well locally. Kimball Livingston, I kind of doubt I'll be blogging from Jeddah.
And Ted Ryman is.
What's Ted Ryman saying?
Jeddah is a scare tactic to get Auckland to get their act together. I reckon it'll be Auckland.
He coughs. Oh, I hope he's right. And speaking of which, we'll go to that slide. I hope he's right. Auckland is still the best and logical place to do it. There's plenty of money available if they were a little creative. And the idea of lining one's pockets with petrodollars from Jeddah, I think is just, I hope the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron and the Royal Yacht Squadron Limited, even though they don't have any, the Challenger record doesn't have any say in the venue, it's the Defender. But the idea that the Defender has delegated this to the team and the team is making the decision with the help of Sir Keith Mills, Origin Sports, I just think, and if they're going to, it's ridiculous. It's a travesty. You heard me before. I think it's not on. It'll be a disaster for the sport. I mean, Bermuda was not great either. If they'd done it here again after the success of 2013, I think 2017 would have been a huge event.
Yes.
And of course, the boat itself is not helping a lot, I think, with gathering up teams. We need teams. Until you have teams, you don't have eyeballs and press coverage, media attention from other countries. So you need teams, which means more countries. And this boat does not make it easy for other countries, although maybe the AC-40 will help ultimately do that. But somehow I still think a box rule TP 75 would be much better for the sport and the cup. But, who am I?
For sure, the cost ought to get down before there will be more boats.
And the cost has to come down, the cost of competing. And you've got, New York's got their assets in a base already in Auckland. Luna Rossa Prataprelli's got a base already there. The Brits have their equipment there. They've left it in Auckland. And the Luna Rossa's taken their stuff back to Cagliari, to Sardinia, but they still have their base. Oh, I guess they had to remove their base, didn't they? In any event, this is where it should be. I hope it goes back there. Preach on, Tom, Bill Wingrove is saying. Thank you, Bill. Thank you for that. Back to Auckland. One can only hope. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Andrew Pindar wants to invite everybody, I'm sure, to Scarborough, where he lives.
Bill Wingrove says, looking at Google Earth, there are plenty of locations for docks, and I think he's talking about, I don't know where. It's unclear about what he's talking about. I was assuming he was talking about Jeddah, but the water is spotty until you get out a ways.
Well, I talked, a FOSI, a senior serious person called me who's worked at length for years in Saudi Arabia. Now, it was some years ago, so you got to take that with a bit of a grain of salt. But he related he related horror stories, frankly, about working at, and he's an Anglo, and I won't say even from what country, but he related horror stories. And I've not been to Saudi Arabia. I've been to Dubai a number of times, and it was very pleasant. And I've been to Abu Dhabi, and it was very pleasant. But I didn't have to live there. I didn't move my family there. I didn't try to conduct an event with people who want to come in and sail if they're women or they're Jews or they're Jewish people or whatever, or have a stamp from Israel in their passport, or they're gay. There's just lots of problems with doing it. Okay, enough. Stop it. I'm stopping it. Anybody else want to weigh in? Kim Bond, I'm off to Sunderland in a couple of weeks. Emmett is saying farther north in Scarborough. Okay, they're all talking. Kim Bond, thank you, Kim, for coming on again. Send us a couple of nice comments. That is the venue update. Now, if there's really another, I don't see any more texting from Russell Green, but if there really is another Spanish bid, it just feels like Spain is really done. We haven't heard anything from anybody else in Spain. Now, maybe there's some other group lurking, or maybe this guy Dunphy or somebody, some other party. Maybe it's even Ernesto Bertarelli, SNG, because one hears SNG has quietly been involved in this and may even have challenged as the backup challenger. In other words...
Oh, we heard that earlier, yeah.
Well, I'm not sure we said it on the show, did I?
No, I don't know.
It may be the Société Nautique Genève in Geneva, which, by the way, didn't... who told me he was there? Andrew Pindar's there. Maybe Andrew can run down and talk to the club manager, the club commodore. But if SNG has already filed a challenge and challenged ahead of New York, and that's Ernesto Bertarelli, and remember, Ernesto had strong connections in Spain. He's the one who was, running the Cup, funding the Cup, and funding Alinghi when the Cup went to Valencia, Spain. So maybe now somehow Ernesto's involved in SNG. It's just pure speculation, but I put it out there in case any of you has some news. Gordon Smith, if you read the press release in detail about the feeder boat event, it is very clear that the design rule of the AC 75 is fixed for the next two cups. Yeah. This can only mean that the next one will be only for the two teams, i.e. no other competitors than Ineos and ETNZ. That they have denied. There was a story that Stingray sent me this morning, and I didn't have time to stick it in the show, on newshub.co.nz, one of their big news websites down there now. And there is a report there with an interview of Grant Dalton saying that it was an urban myth that the next cup would be one-on-one. So it's starting to sound more than ever like it's going to be 2024, open to everybody, not just a one-on-one match. But you're right, Gordon Smith, there's no way they can guarantee that the cup will be held in the same class of boat, the AC 75, for the next two cups. That's been tried before, where the defender says, well, if you sign up, if we let you in as a challenger, you have to commit to using the AC 75 in future editions. If you win, and you got to hold everybody else's feet to the same fire. That will never fly under New York law, under the deed of gift, under deed and trust law, because you cannot constrain, you can't tie the hands of a future defender trustee. Full stop, contractually or otherwise. So it's maybe wishful thinking. They want to try to stabilize and keep in the same boat, but it ain't going to happen by fiat, by contract. Okay, is it correct, though? We're going to change the topic unless, Julia.
Stingray says Ernesto's wife secretly bought a big beachfront hotel in Valencia a week before Ernie announced them as the venue. Maybe she still owns it.
I don't know that that's true, is it?
I have no idea.
Stingray? I never heard that. Talbot Wilson, the AC-40 looks like an update of American Magic's Mule. Well, I'm sure it's kind of a cross between the Mule and the Hawk, Te Kahu. But it's the idea of it's a boat around about that length. And remember, so that the boat is not the surrogacy rule has been that a half-size boat, as long as it's smaller than a half-size boat, it would not break the surrogacy rule. But they could rewrite that in the protocol, which is coming out supposedly in November. Julia.
John Emmett is replying to Stingray. When you say the wife bought the hotel, she did so secretly. Do you mean that she didn't tell him?
Well, everybody needs an apartment in town,
Yeah.
in case you need to get away. Okay, correct or Croutonic? We got to that segment, and then we've been diverted here by all your wonderful comments. Luca Craig, there's another new name. Chris Gillingham. Chris, say hi to your wife, Jane, in Leamington. Warren Chaucer's alive and kicking down in, Brisbane, down under. Okay, here's, speaking of Australian. This is an article that has been widely posted around here in the States. It was on news, and I don't know if it's fake news or not. I contacted a couple of the FOSI. Australian state limits residents of COVID-19 lockdown apartments to 6 beers per day. In other words, if you've been gone into these lockdown apartments, you can't order in, can't go out, but you can't order in more than 6 beers per day or 1 bottle of wine or 1 bottle of booze, supposedly. Is this correct or Croutonic? This is National Review, one of the magazine websites here in the States, via Yahoo News. That is not beer. What is it? That's Foster's Ale. Okay, Ehman. Fake Tom. Jeff Waller is saying it's fake news. It's Croutonic. Doesn't say how big the beers are. Well, the article says residents in apartment buildings that have been locked down by Australia's New South Wales State Health Department over COVID-19 concerns say they've had their deliveries searched and have had packages containing alcohol confiscated if the amount exceeds the department's prescribed alcohol limit. In apartment blocks locked down by the New South Wales Health, residents are having their alcohol deliveries policed in accordance with the department's policy, which allows...
Is that 6 bottles? What happens if there are 12 people living in the place?
It's which allows residents to receive a ration of 6 beers or pre-mixed drinks. That must mean like a wine cooler. 1 bottle of wine or 1 375 millimeter bottle of spirits, according to news.com.au. Any alcohol outside the limit is being confiscated until lockdown rules are lifted, according to the report. Residents may ask a clinician if they want more than the prescribed limits.
Oh, yes. That's
The
great.
article goes on. At Mission Australia's Common Ground building, residents have said care packages sent by friends and relatives are being searched before they're delivered. Quote, they're searching all bags and things coming into the building. They confiscated a series of gifts. So things like bottles of spirits, we weren't allowed to have those, and we still aren't, one resident told the outlet. A Sydney local health district spokesman told a news site that the alcohol limits are being enforced in the state health department's special accommodations where COVID-positive patients and close contacts are sent for isolation. Spokeswoman said that it goes on. But then they say, well, a spokesman for the police said officers are not confiscating alcohol delivered to those residential buildings and that they do not have the authority to do so. So what does that mean? Is this correct or Croutonic? 2 questions, really. Is it happening? Are they stopping people from getting alcohol deliveries of more than a certain amount? And if that is happening, is it correct or Croutonic? So there's really 2 parts to the question. So what are people saying, Julia? Wingrove, you see what he says? I bet the police are having more than 6 each. And I had a discussion with, who was it? I guess it was Peter Stevenson with Pedro Foiling Sailor. And I said, well, if they're doing this, why are they doing it? And the reasoning was that he thought that if you get a lot of alcohol, you get frisky and have sex. And I said, well, is that it? Or is it that you're getting alcohol and you're having parties and you're breathing on each other?
Yeah.
I think that's probably it. But maybe it's both. Anyway, is this correct or Croutonic? You Aussies tell us. Jeff Waller's saying it's absolutely true. Not true, rather. Stingray is saying, I don't believe it. Hit the Granger. What else? Pindar saying, however, I can exclusively report that Jody Shields has exemption when buying cases of bar karate sailor's lager due to it being a sports drink. The home brewing market will explode if it's true. Our Tony Hawk or Robbie Nash Red Bull. Sounds like Cold War East Germany. Is this, really, you guys, is this true or not? It's been reported on our national news networks and they're making fun of our friends in Australia. And as I said here, as I'm reading from the National Review here via Yahoo News.
Warren Shostry says, pretty sure it's true.
He does. Well, Warren is in Brisbane. I don't know. Is it true or not? Per person, what size bottles? That's what Talbot Wilson's asking.
David James says, does anyone in Australia actually drink Foster's? In 20 visits there, I've never seen a local order one.
Well, I've ordered it and drank it while I was there and outside of Australia, for that matter.
Bundaberg.
Okay. Well, this seems, whether this is correct, whether it's actually happening, and if it is happening, whether it's correct or Crutonic, I think the jury is out. We'll have to save that for Tuesday.
Mark Houston said, if it's true, it's wrong. And Jeff Waller says, we don't drink Foster's. Omchick says, fake news.
Well, and Jeff Waller's saying it's reported by Murdoch Press. So what? Well, I don't think it was reported by Murdoch. Does Murdoch own National Review? I don't know.
Ted Byron says, we had an alcohol ban in South Africa to keep the hospitals clear for COVID patients.
Okay, enough of this.
Oh, and Stingray says, what's the national beer in Jeddah?
Well, that may be the biggest problem, right?
Right.
Julia, is that you won't be able to drink. I think Westerners can drink. I think none, but who knows? We'll see. We'll see. Jody Shields posted this apropos all this lockdown stuff, and I really feel bad because they've been 200 and some odd 20 days out of the last whatever in Victoria, in Melbourne, and I don't know what's been going on in Australia. And I know that talking with a couple of our Kiwi friends, they will learn next. Let me go back to Jody's thing in a moment. They will learn Monday whether their lockdown continues. Most people think the Kiwi lockdown will continue come Tuesday next week for another week or maybe two, and they're split. There's some people saying, well, let's don't go up and down. We're going to lock down, let's stay locked down. But I don't see you all who are locked down, sooner or later your COVID zero policies are going to go away because, as Andrew McIrvin and others tell us now, we're all going to get this thing. Maybe even if you're vaccinated and just hopefully are vaccinated, you won't get it very bad. But Jody had the temerity to post this less than 24 hours ago. Jody's feeling confused. As we are getting closer to reaching the magic number to get our lives back to some normality, the latest chat is that we have to prove that we are fully covered against a certain ailment to allow access into certain premises. My question is this: why is it that we have to prove that we have only been protected from this particular issue? Why not all the other issues that are easily transferred from person to person? So I admire Jody for posting that, and he got inundated with comments left, right, and center. So Jody, that was pretty good. And he goes on to say loads of different ways of getting sick, and what are your thoughts? And he invited comments, and I thought I was good at stirring the pot on Facebook, but Jody, you win some kind of a prize for this one. And he got inundated with comments. Jody Shields, our dear friend down in, Wangi, north of Sydney. And one of the comments was this, which I hadn't seen before, and I thought it was interesting. Quarantine, that's restricting the movement of sick people. Tyranny is restricting the movement of healthy people. Mm-hmm. Julia, I dedicate that to you because I know you feel that way.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of others on here do, but some of you don't. Some of you think, no, it's not tyranny, it's just safety, community safety, and that's what we've got to do. So I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that. I'll let that go. I know 7 people who were double jabbed who got COVID last month, same family. The Jody Foiling Sailor. Yes, John Emmett, we got to start calling him Jody Foiling Sailor. And Husted is saying Jody Shields was making a good point. Yes, he was. He's absolutely making it. And I thought this actually, when our president here, Biden, in this country, came up with this policy yesterday saying everybody who works for the federal government or who is a contractor of the federal government and has to be vaccinated. And if they're not, they're going to be fired. And except he gave an exemption to the Postal Service, all the postal workers, and they arguably have more contact with the general public than any other federal worker by far.
And are huge contributors
to spreading?
To his campaign.
Oh, the union. Sure, it's a huge, okay. I helped inoculate. Oh, yeah, Gordon Smith did. Gordon Smith put up some great posts on that, too, and that got everybody going. Okay, we're ready to take, this was a popular thing. I got several notes from people. Julia, was nice for you and me, wasn't it?
Yes.
Our 7th inning stretch. Shall we do that again?
Oh, good idea.
We're an hour and 11 minutes into the show. As long as my feels good to stand up. Since we don't have a commercial, can you stand up okay?
Maybe.
It's that double-breasted blazer of yours.
I can't. I'm too close to the table.
Try one more time.
I'm too close to the table.
Try one more time. Swivel that thing around, see if you can get up.
I can't.
Okay, don't knock your table over.
No.
Okay, well, I got to stand up at least, and I hope all the rest of you did. Run and get a cocktail as we listen to our national baseball anthem. They sing during the 7th inning stretch here, which is, 3/4 of the way through the ball game, which we are now 3/4 of the way through this show. One can only hope that courtesy of the Kansas City Symphony and Chorus under the direction of Michael Stern from 2014. When they were losing to the San Francisco Giants, or ultimately did lose to the San Francisco Giants in the World Series. Speaking of World Series, that's where I came up with the name. Well, baseball can have a World Series. Why can't sailing have a World Series?
David James says CDC released a study today concluding that unvaccinated folks are 11 times more likely to die.
I believe it. You don't want to, I mean, all you have to do is listen to
John Campbell.
Well, John Campbell, what all you have to do is listen to Magnus Wheatley, who got a bad case of breakthrough COVID.
Yes.
And others who we know who had breakthroughs. You don't want to, David James. Okay, we don't want to get it. You want to get vaxxed, I think. But I'm not a doctor. I'm not recommending anybody do it or not do it. But I do think you should have the choice as to whether or not you do it. Gordon Smith, my wife, is now looking at me in a very strange way. It didn't help when I pointed at Tom on the screen. Okay, well, this day in history, we've got to commemorate 9/11, which is, it's already 9/11 down under, so it's the 10th here, of course, but it's been in the news here, needless to say, all week, and I thought we should also talk a little bit about it and then go to the sailing connection as well. And there are really 3 images that I was actually in Hamburg, Germany, and I got a call. I was in my office there, and the late, great Bob Billingham was with us, and we got a call that, hey, you won't believe this, but a plane flew into one of the Twin Towers. Mm-hmm. And, you assumed that was a small little,
yep.
Cessna or something, not a commercial jet. And I went home. I said, oh, well, come on, really? Is it bad? Well, it's bad. And then when this happened, the second one went in. We all went back to our house, which was close to the office, 5 minutes away, and we saw this on replay. This is just awful, obviously. Yeah. The words don't describe. But they also went into the Pentagon, another American Airlines flight that went into Washington, D.C., into the Pentagon and caused death and destruction there. But the one that had a bit of a sailing connection, not strongly, was this horrific but heroic act in Shanksville, PA, in Pennsylvania. This plane had been hijacked, and the people it was delayed, and it was enough delayed that the people on the plane were able to, once they realized they had been hijacked, they started using the airphones and calling to their friends and family, and heard what was going on at the Twin Towers. I don't know if the Pentagon had happened then or not, but they decided the hijackers had moved everybody to the back of the plane. I'm sure you've all read about this at one time or another, but I'd forgotten a lot of this in 20 years. Mm-hmm. Moved the crew and the passengers to the back of the plane, and they took a vote and decided, well, we're going to storm this, because if we're now turned and headed for Washington, D.C., whether they're going to go for the Capitol building or the White House or tell me what, there's going to be death and destruction beyond what. Let's try to get control of the plane. So this happened heroically. A total of 13 passengers apparently this is now all recorded in the various reports, made 37 phone calls. Through their phone conversations, they learned of the first 2 attacks and subsequently took quick action. Pushed to the back of the plane by the hijackers, the passengers and crew took a vote and decided to fight back to try and regain control of their plane. As a result of the phone calls made from on board Flight 93 and from the cockpit voice recorder later recovered at the crash site, we learned of the struggle the passengers and crew members had with their hijackers, which began in the skies over western Pennsylvania and ended with the high-speed crash of the plane in a reclaimed strip mine near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Just I didn't realize it was 18 minutes flying time from Washington, D.C. Countless lives were presumably spared thanks to their heroic actions, but all on board Flight 93, of course, were lost. And there is another famous photo from that incident. And do you know who this gentleman is, Julia?
I should.
His name is Todd Beamer.
Oh, no,
was Todd Beamer. He was born in Michigan. His birthday is the 24th of November. Not that that makes any difference.
Oh, it does.
And he worked for Oracle Corp. And he was flying from Newark. I think that plane took off from Newark, New Jersey. The flight was bound for San Francisco, and the hijackers took over and turned it back toward D.C. He was one of the heroes, if not the leader of the pack, who in the back of the plane apparently said, let's roll, let's go after them. They took a vote, though, and 2 days after this, Larry Ellison, and this is how I found out about it because it was sent to the team, too. We were all by then on it. This was leading up to the 2003 Cup. Larry Ellison sent an email to Oracle employees and to the team members. In this email, Ellison praised Todd Beamer, for Todd's heroic action in fighting the terrorists and stopping the plane from reaching its destination in Washington, D.C. And there's been a big brouhaha in the conspiracy circles because this had not been announced, that he was even who this guy was and that he was even on the plane. Yet Larry knew and announced it. And Larry also knew about his heroic actions. Well, Larry, of course, Oracle Corp was named. He has always had close connections with our intelligence services. In fact, Oracle was an early project of the CIA, and that's how he named the company, after this database that he started for the CIA called Oracle, and then ultimately named the company Oracle Corp. And this gentleman worked for Ellison, for Larry, and Oracle Corp, and they heard it on the, apparently they said, "Are you guys ready? Let's roll." So Todd Beamer, a hero. He wasn't a sailor that I know of, but he was an Oracle Corp guy, and we all heard about this. May he and everyone else, the thousands of people who died that day, rest in peace. And God forbid we have more similar action anytime ever, let alone soon.
I worry about that we are still pretty naive about things like that.
Well, especially with now what we're doing with Afghanistan. But this is not the Afghanistan show, but
no.
We do want to congratulate again. We mentioned this a couple weeks ago that Sail Newport will once again be running their 20th anniversary. Lest we forget, Sail for Pride Regatta. It's the best race in Newport is around Connecticut Island. We all love that race, all of us that have lived there and sailed there. And that is tomorrow, Sail Newport's 20th anniversary, Lest We Forget Regatta, and bravo salute to them and the founder and everybody involved in that. Now, carrying on with this day in history, getting back to some Sailing in America's Cup news, we have Dr. Hamish Ross, of course, our FOSI and Cup historian and legal advisor to any number of former teams, who sent me this. He'll post it. He's been posting these nice things on his Facebook page, and he said, while September 11th today has a sad, dark resonance in our recent history as we remember the people and families that suffered and continue to do so at the hands of the Saudi terrorists, and most of them were Saudis, as you know. It is, two of them were from RAK, I think. I think Stingray told us that. It is a cup-winning day when the Mayflower defeated Hans Galatea to successfully defend the America's Cup in 1886 by a substantial margin of 29 minutes and 9 seconds. So we'll get some better news here, some better historical news. The year before, Puritan won its first race against Sir Richard Sutton's Genesta, and in 1893, Vigilant won selection to become the defender against Lord Dunraven's first challenge in Valkyrie 2. In 1983, the New York Yacht Club presented a lengthy affidavit to Alan Bond to sign under oath as to the design pedigree of Australia 2, and more particularly its keel. In other words, was it designed by Ben Lexon and all Australians, as was then required in the Cup rules. The request was none too politely declined in the Australian vernacular. In 2004, the first America's Cup 32 related event in Marseille, France, which for some awful reason had been called Acts, as if the Cup is a Shakespearean tragedy, But it almost was in Marseille, because after that event was over, and perhaps it had wrapped up, it was won by our team, by Oracle, BMW Oracle. We were so stoked to win the first act. But the event was given a nasty send-off with an overnight explosive storm. It was a little mini tornado that went through there, featuring winds of more than 85 knots, toppling over several of the AC-class yachts sitting on the hardstand, including Alinghi's SUI-64, our BMW Oracle, I think that was 70. I can't remember which one it was. And Team New Zealand's yachts, with the latter coming off the worst. Hamish Ross says, I recall the weather teams copping a lashing from the bosses for not predicting it. And I looked around for some pictures. I have some pictures that I myself took, but there's K Challenge, the French Challenge. They were okay, but ironically, the three top teams all got hit with this little windstorm, this little dervish, this mini tornado, and that is Alinghi's yacht knocked over on its side onto a container. And the pictures are not 100%, but courtesy of Yachting World, there is Team New Zealand's boat. You can see it knocked over. And there is one of our boat, Oracle's, USA's, I think it was 76. It was either maybe 71. Can't remember which boat it was. Knocked over on this day in history in Marseille after Act 1 of the America's Cup World Series. Hamish also goes on to say the pedigree of the design of Australia 2's radical wing keel remains a controversial and often divisive subject. I'm taking a risk even in discussing it here. Ben Lexon has been credited with its design, but he was always careful to credit the support he received from the Dutch technicians at the Netherlands Ship Model Basin, which he did in 1983, did formally credit the final design of Australia 2 to Ben Lexon. Against this are the persistent claims of Joop Sloof, more recently outlined in more detail in his book, Australia 2 and the America's Cup, The Untold Inside Story of the Keel, which all Cup fans interested in the subject ought read for another perspective, Hamish says. In 2009, the Dutch naval architect at the Netherlands Ship Model Basin, Peter van Oosanen, claimed that the wing keel was actually designed by him and his group of Dutch designers and not Ben Lexon. This is also apropos what was going on in this day in history, this week in history in Newport, 1983. And there is an image, obviously a composite. There's Van Oosanen down there in the lower right, and Ben Lexon, the late great Ben Lexon, up there in the upper right, and of course Bondi and the Prime Minister who just died, I think, Robert Hawke, former Prime Minister. I think he did. Our Aussie friends will know. But this is an article from the Sydney Morning Herald in 2009. Wing keel not Lexon's design, the Dutch architect claims. Sydney Morning Herald, big article, got a lot of attention. But at the end of the day, it was not, it was way too late for anybody to be worried about it. The late, great Ben Lexon, who was born Bob Miller, and he changed his name to Ben Lexon, and you know who Ben was?
No.
It was his dog. And Lexon sounded high-tech and forward-looking. So Ben Lexon,
I didn't
Lexon.
know that.
What a character he was, and obviously a great designer. And he, no question, had a lot to do with the design of that boat. Whether the Dutch came up with a keel or not, it really doesn't matter. But it was a big deal this day in history, and I was there. The New York Yacht Club almost didn't run that match. They came down to a vote. It was 7-6 or 6-5, I can't remember, in a meeting of the Cup Committee with the Commodore coming in ex officio, Bob Stone, the late great Bob Stone. And they took a vote as to whether or not to run the race, because when Bondi wouldn't sign that affidavit that Hamish was just writing about, they decided that, well, maybe we ought to call this off. They also sent a guy. They sent a cable over to the Dutch and said, will you design us a boat? Just like the one you designed for the Aussies. Well, the late, great Warren Jones, who was the executive director of Australia 2, working for Bondi, turned that around, held a press conference in Newport about this same time this week, and said, well, look at this. The Australians or the Americans are trying to steal our design or trying to show that we didn't design the boat or trying to buy a design from the Dutch. Come on, look at these guys. And I'll tell you, the press around the world just fell all over New York Yacht Club, and Warren Jones was playing them like the proverbial fiddle. But that last meeting, and it was a big deal. In fact, they needed to be secret. They needed to meet in private. They came up and met in my office on Goat Island. I was then executive director of USYU and was a rules advisor to these guys. I wasn't in the meeting, to these guys, the gentlemen. And they met in my office, and I cleared out, and they took this decision. A lot of us thought they were going to vote not to run the 83 Cup.
Yeah.
Well, that's this week in history anyway. And thanks to Hamish Ross for all of that. I remember Ted Ryman, I remember they kept hiding the keel behind canvas. It was a team effort. Yeah, well, it was. They kept the keel, but the biggest mistake was New York. The teams were permitted to go look at each other's measurement in June when the measures came and measured the boat. And New York had a chance then to go send a representative to go watch the measurement to be sure it was kosher. And the Aussies very cleverly said, well, it's going to be at this time. Oh, no, it's going to be at that time. It's going to be now at this time. And New York kind of got confused and just lost. I mean, what could be so interesting about a measurement in June? Well, they would have seen what this was all about and given Liberty 3 months, not 3 weeks or even less, Liberty Dennis Conner, the defender, to try to figure out what to do. They weren't going to build a wing keel 12 in the meantime, but they might have figured out something.
Yeah.
So the rest, as they say, is history. Bill Wingrove, DC's book, Comeback, details things pretty well. Yes, it does. Barbara Lloyd, her book as well with Michael Levitt, also does. It's all pretty good. But again, it's history, and the Australians won, and it was the end of New York's hegemony, 132-year winning streak for the Cup. And some people say it was the best thing that ever happened to the Cup. Some people say it was the worst thing that ever happened to our beloved Cup.
Be sure and read the comments afterwards.
There are a lot of great comments.
Yes.
Can't wait until September 7th, then we get into the design. Yeah, we'll see. Thanks, everybody, for the comments. We're into our second to last segment here. Really our D block now, and my favorite segment, if not Julia's. It's clean today, Julia.
Oh, okay.
It's all clean. And here's the first one. And thank you to the FOSI who send these in. I could never find all these. This is why we have blonde jokes. We dedicate this to not only to Dr. Fauci, the CDC's, the guy here in the U.S. who's the top guy on COVID, but also to Dr. Andrew McIrvin. A lot of people are saying we better get McIrvin back on here to find out what's going on with these boosters and jabs and so on. Andrew's busy with the being Secretary General of the IMA in Sardinia.
And running a beautiful regatta.
Yeah, and it's raining there. It was raining there today, and he posted a picture, which I grabbed and didn't stick in the show, of what it looks like off his deck. I mean, it's tough being the Secretary General of the IMA. This is why we have blonde jokes.
Fashion.
It's nice. Well, here's another blonde joke, and this is for our Brazilians.
And die in a skydiving accident.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it is
6
sad.
Brazilians.
But you know what? They were skydiving, and there's always that risk involved.
It just seems like so many. How many is a Brazilian?
I had to think about that. I didn't get that right. How many is a Brazilian?
That's an old joke.
I know, but still, blonde or American or both? One of our FOSI sent. I never know if the FOSI want me to give them credit or not. This one, Julie, I dedicate to us with the little crime situation here. This door also comes with the latest technology. We installed a facial recognition device. Some call it a peephole.
I can't do without it. Yeah.
Better than your Nest. Now I'm pretty sure this came from Ryman, from Ted Ryman. And I love this because we're carnivores here, as you know. Dear vegans, I've killed this cow because it was eating your food. Ted Ryman, thank you for sending that. And finally, for everybody here, if someone says you have too many boats, stop talking to them. You don't need that kind of negativity in your life.
Okay.
Nattering nabob of negativity. You know who said that?
Harry Anderson.
No, that was Vice President Spiro T. Agnew, was Nixon's vice president. Okay, this finish line, we're just going to give you a quick look here into this event, which started today, is going on as we speak. I haven't seen any updates. Down at Long Beach Yacht Club, this is the preliminary event. It qualifies 3 teams for the for the Congressional Cup. The Ficker Cup got underway today. It's a World Tour level, a World Match Racing Tour level something event of the WMRT, and official qualifier for Congo Cup, September 14th through the 19th. Well, that's not quite right. The Congressional Cup is next week, is the 14th through the 19th. Ficker Cup starts today and runs through Sunday. The top 3 teams from Ficker will qualify for this year's Congressional Cup. Founded in '65 and widely regarded as the grandfather of match racing. One interesting tidbit some of you will have seen, Sailing Team Stars Plus Stripes, which is now affiliated, of course, with New York Yacht Club, Taylor Canfield, Mike Buckley. They have announced the formation of a development team, a youth team, to compete at this year's Ficker Cup Regatta in Long Beach. The team will be helmed by current youth match racing world champion David Wood, with veteran world champion crew Eric Champagne serving as team captain, and crew Madeline Gill, Ian Liberty, Chris Stock, Reed Baldridge, and Evan Aras, all sailing on that team. David Wood, as you may remember, we covered that live I was down there helping telecast that. He won the Youth Match Racing World Championship 2021 last month, hosted by Balboa Yacht Club. So he's gone from that to now being the youth development team for New York Yacht Clubs, at least for Stars Plus Stripes, and apparently they're affiliated New York Yacht Club. This photo, courtesy of Denise Peterson, is this morning at Long Beach Yacht Club. Those are the Catalina 37s about to dock out for Ficker Cup, same boats that are used in Congressional Cup. You know who that team is doing their stretching on the dock? They're all women.
Yeah.
That's a clue. That's a hint. Doing their morning stretch is St. Francis Yacht Club's Nicole Briot.
Yeah, yes.
And she's top-notch. She's the current U.S. women's match racing champion, and she should have a good shot in this.
She's fabulous.
See if she can get to the top 3 and move on to the Congressional Cup next week. Joining the Ficker Cup lineup, in addition to Wood, are Pearson Potts of Southern Yacht Club. I think he now lives in Newport, Rhode Island. Peter Holtz, Dave Hood, Jeffrey Peterson, Emil Kjær of Denmark, who sailed both in the Gov Cup and in the Worlds, plus top-ranked female match racer Pauline. Remember Pauline Courtois, who was here? Is that how you say that in French? Courtois?
I would think
Courtois,
so.
from France. She won, or was, I guess, on the podium here for what was that? That was the World Sailing's Match Racing.
I don't remember.
Something Cup. They got too many events. World Sailing, just get out of all this stuff and let the World Match Racing Tour run things, and the clubs like Long Beach and Balboa and the Cup, the events that they run down under, the Nespresso and the Harkin and so on.
Yeah.
So Nicole Briot is there, the current U.S. women's match racing champion. We mentioned Pauline Courtois. So best wishes to all of them, including and especially Jeffrey Peterson, our FOSI and frequent contributor. He's been on the show any number of times at the tender age of, 18, 17, 18, 19? I don't know, he's just a freshman in college, or maybe a sophomore now in college. He will be helming in the Ficker Cup with a good chance also, I think, to get through to Congressional Cup. And we'll be watching that picture from a couple hours ago. Nice conditions as usual off the Veterans Memorial Belmont Pier in Long Beach, where the 2028 Olympics, well, the 84 Olympics also took place more or less there, but the 2028 Olympics will take place off that same pier in Long Beach in, 7 years' time. It's seems like a long way off, but it's really only the day after tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Okay, Julia, anything else for the good of the order?
I just have to say, St. Francis's Big Boat Series begins this weekend, too.
This weekend?
Next weekend.
Next weekend. Starts next Thursday.
Yeah.
I'll promo it on the Tuesday show. You had me worried there for a minute, like I had forgotten about it.
Sorry about that.
We have a big dinner party for one of the participants.
Yes.
Who's coming in from South Africa or somewhere. Mm-hmm. Don't forget there are bull sharks in Lake Macquarie. That's up where Jody is. Maura Stevens up in Canada is watching. Welcome again to all of you. Magnus is on.
Oh, good.
Had a long chat with Magnus the other day, and we compared notes. And Magnus is going to come on the show also after the venue announcement is made. He is full of fun. I love that guy.
How's he feeling?
He's much better. He's not complete. Actually, that's a good question, good point. Magnus said that he is still, after COVID, and he's not sure he has long COVID. He hopes he doesn't think he does. But the physical exertion of having had COVID and then getting over it is still to get up and do stand-up paddleboard and so on. At first he could barely do it. Now he can do it for a little bit, and it was really took a toll on him, the breakthrough COVID that he had. Julia, you're a witness.
Yes. You have one thing to do this week, and that's right now. Like, follow, share, subscribe, make a lot of noise on the internet for us.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. It does help us with we get more views, and we get more viewers, and it's good for the sport too, we hope.
Indeed.
Unless you think we're Crutonic, in which case don't do it. Comments welcome too, even in replays. 1,000 people watch us live, and then another several thousand usually in replay. Thanks to all of you who support us via Patreon, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Last chance, Julia.
I'm hoping that the anniversary of 9/11 will encourage us all to work together
across the globe, especially in this country.
Yeah.
And I'm also hoping that it passes without incident.
Yes.
Let's just get through this. And let's get out of Afghanistan with no more turmoil. And hopefully the people who have already been left behind are able to get out one way or another and not suffer at the hands of the bloody infidels, the Taliban. Okay, that does it for us. We hope you have a great weekend with the ones you love. We hope you, if nothing else, you get to have a chance to sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao.